Good Friday afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. Literally Good Friday, right? It
Yeah,
literally is Good Friday.
it
And
is.
and if you haven't noticed yet, if you've been with us before, Victor is not in his normal YouTube studio.
Nope.
This is a
I'm
green
on a.
this is a green screen, right?
You wish. You wish.
Oh man. By the way, if you don't know who we are, my name is Darren Pope. This over here to my right is Victor Farsick. And we are the co-host of a podcast called DevOps Paradox. And on Fridays, we do this thing called DevOps Paradox Live pretty much every Friday, except last Friday. I had some stuff going on, so I had to take care of that. And we just talk about the things of the week. And this week, we're going to talk about things of the past 2 weeks. We may end up dropping some things other than just a quick mention. Everything we're talking about today will be down below in the description after the show. So you're at your vacation place, right?
Vacation cabin or house or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm 1 hour drive from where I normally am. A
Yes.
bit more to south.
Is it nice, temperature-wise?
Oh, I mean, it's short sleeves. It's not
Okay.
yet pool time. So
Okay.
nice is when I can go to the pool.
Okay. So we're not just there yet, but we're getting close.
Getting close.
Okay, cool. So if you're here with us live today, you got any comments and stuff, go ahead and put them over in the chat. If you're watching on replay, thanks for watching the replay. We promise, we hope we won't bore you, but we may. So speaking of not boring, are you ready for this? What's new in 121? This just came out from SysDig this week. It just popped up in my feed of things today. And not real surprising. We knew most of this was coming. And this is a really long thing, so we're not going to go through this top to bottom. I want to call out a couple of things that are sort of close to the top. Finally, GA is cron job, pod disruption budget, and sysctl.
Yeah.
How many versions did it take? 1.4 to 121. 17 versions. So if you divide that by 4, 3.5 years.
And that shows that Kubernetes community is serious. They're not, randomly announcing GA or version 2, 3, whatever, not doing marketing pitch, but really waiting until it really is GA, right?
Yeah. And the other side is they're sad to see pod security policies go away. It doesn't hurt my feelings any. It's a good concept, but there's other ways to solve for it.
Yes, many other ways, and they acknowledge that, and I'm happy that they're deprecating it.
Yeah.
That's normal,
Yeah.
you do something, you figure out that you could do better, and you deprecate it. Or you leave it to community outside of core Kubernetes, right?
Yeah. So, and I want to call out just a couple of the editor picks, which were pretty good. Memory Manager, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
This was interesting, was how the scheduler's working. Nominated nodes and pod affinity selector. Although the community is putting this in, this feels dirty to me. Just because of the basics of Kubernetes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't care about nominating nodes or doing this. This is starting to get a little too. This is going beyond. Here's my code. Go run it.
Yes, it's going a bit backwards, but on the other hand, it's also acknowledging that Kubernetes community is growing and that more and more people are using it, and then people have stuff that might not be designed for Kubernetes.
Yeah.
It feels dirty, but it's probably also necessary.
Yeah, I believe it is necessary, but this would be like one of those last ditch things. This would not be the first thing on the list. This would be towards the end of the list.
Yeah.
To me, this is use it only. This is break glass in case of emergency type.
It should come with a warning, kind of.
Yeah.
Are you sure that you must use this? And then
Yeah.
you need to answer with yes 3 times.
Yeah.
And then you can use it.
And then this one I liked, the replica set downscaling. 2 new strategies, semi-random and cost-based. This is a pretty big deal, especially if you have a cluster, an auto scale up event. Getting the downscale to happen cleanly was a pain at best.
Oh yeah.
So I like this, and there's a bunch more here. We're not going to go through all these. I just want to call out, the top ones and what the people at Sysdig have said, because I tend to agree with them based on how much I've read this. So, cron job, thumbs up. Finally, GA. It only took 3.5 years.
Yeah, I think that now I'm not sure whether there is anything left that is not GA, at least among important things.
Yeah, this is if there is, it's a smaller one.
Yeah.
Right, just not as big of a deal. It's really weird hearing the birds outside. That's very nice. It's a very nice thing. By the way, we didn't even talk about this week's episode that we had with Nicola Frankel, where it was Goodbye Minikube. Actually, that's what his blog post was about. But we titled it "What to Do When Technology Fails."
Exactly. It was a good one. I like that episode.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to it yet, you can go listen to it, DevOpsParadox.com, anywhere you get your audio, meaning anywhere you listen to podcasts. Take a listen to it. I think you'll like it. And we'll talk towards the end about what next week is about. Okay. Quick mention, I'm sure it will come back up in there. What is number 2? Oh, number 2. EKS reduces control plane creation by 40%, down from roughly 20 minutes to 9 minutes. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, 20 minutes to 9 minutes is not 40%. It's more than 40%.
Well, 20 minutes would get you the whole cluster.
Yeah. Okay, control plane in 9 minutes, yes.
Yeah.
But on one hand, it's amazing that they acknowledge that it's slow and reduced it. That's amazing. On the other hand, it also shows how slow, at least when creating clusters, AWS is, right?
Yeah.
You can create whole cluster, not only control plane, whole cluster, almost everywhere else in way less than 9 minutes that takes only to create control plane.
Yep. So, first step, they'll just get
good
better.
News.
Yeah.
Exactly.
AWS always just gets better and cheaper, typically.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fighting allergies today. Well, I'm not saying I'm fighting allergies, but my nose is like all of a sudden just opened up. So forgive me if you're watching this and you see me wiping my nose. It's nothing personal. It's just pollen. Moving on. Gimlet D. Did you have a chance to look over this? Because I
not
didn't.
In detail. I did spend some time with it. I actually even spoke for a while directly with Laszlo.
Okay.
And it's a bit complicated to understand what it is, at least to me.
Okay.
But it's a welcome addition. I think that the way how I interpret in general Gimlet is that it is trying to put structure around it can do anything type of approach. And I think that it's great that in this case Flux is very flexible so that you can have as many permutations as you need or anybody needs. But on the other hand, it's nice to have frameworks on top that give you some better direction, structure around how to do stuff.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to build another framework? I don't. So
yeah.
If somebody else wants to, that's great.
But it's good that that Flux did not start from that point, right?
Right.
It's good that baseline tools are very flexible, and then we can build layers on top, like Gimlet, that makes it a platform-like something.
Yep. So, Gimlet D might be worth taking a look at if you're. Where do you see this? Even though you haven't gone hands-on deep with it yet, where would this fit?
It would simply fit for people who want to use GitOps with Flux and do not want to spend time building wrappers around it themselves, figuring out what is a good structure to do stuff. So just kickstarting Flux, let's say.
Okay. Cool. So Gimlet D. I don't remember where I saw this next thing, and I wanted to bang my head against the wall when I actually read it.
It's awesome, man.
Is it?
I think, yeah, it's absolutely awesome.
Okay, so explain to me why. All right, so this is the OAM.dev, the Open
Open application model.
model. Thank you. A runtime agnostic spec for defining cloud native applications.
Yeah, so when you look at Kubernetes, right, they are more like building blocks. Hey, you need a deployment and you need service, maybe virtual service from Istio, maybe gateway or ingress, and so on and so forth, right? There are many different pieces that you need to assemble, and then all of them together, you can call it an application, right? Storage, for example. Now, what Open Application Manager, or whatever is the name, OAM,
Model
does is that it allows you to define what is my application, right? And to remove all the unnecessary things and say, okay, so my application needs to have, let's say, minimum and maximum number of replicas. It needs to have a domain, right? Not necessarily even ingress, but a domain. I need a domain for my application, and so on and so forth. So it allows you to define what is an application. And OAM is just a definition. It's a model in a way, right? How to do that. It's not the end game. The end game are additional tools that would use that interface to allow you to create those application definitions. And the one that is very interesting for me is Kubevela. Actually, there you go. See it in action, Kubevela. And that happens to be the subject of a video I'm working on right now.
Okay.
That's it was so for me very interesting that you put it into the news, because it kind of coincides with the work I'm doing right now.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but we tend to. Well, I don't know. I guess we hadn't talked about this one, so yeah, I guess we both came at it from a different direction.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, good. So if we're both finding it in two different ways, maybe it's worth paying attention to. I don't know.
It's a potentially very, very good thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I would use Kubevela directly. There is OAM that is a definition, interface in a way. Kubevela that allows you to wrap it into something that is useful for people. And then you probably need a third layer that would simplify usage of those things for the end users, let's say devs.
Okay. And this is coming at some point in the future, the Kubevela video. So
wait, let's probably week after next.
Yeah.
Most likely. So we'll go into more details in 2 weeks.
When we get there. Okay, good. Okay, so tooling. Again, we're catching up from a couple of weeks ago. And, you know what we forgot to do? Did you even bring anything out with you?
I didn't. And this time I'm going to be nice and not run away from the stream.
That's fine. Here, I'll do it for both of us. If I don't. Okay, there we go. I take a week off and I forget how to do the show. And what's even worse is it's written down and I completely ignore it. Do you ever do that? Do you write things down and then just don't look at them?
I rarely write things down. I write only kind of bullet points, to-do lists, which is literally like there was Kubevela, single word in my to-do list for months, and now I'm working on it. So I have just to-do lists. Anything more than that, I forget to read it.
Okay, so we're going from to-do lists to do it.
Yeah.
I have been having some very interesting conversations with some of my other friends about this.
Okay.
We're trying to come up with real use cases for this. The only ones we've come up with so far are slow changing data that needs to be tracked. Like, a zip code table or a postal code table. Why am I having such a hard time talking today? A postal code table. I think it's the pollen. My head's not feeling the best. But anyway, if you don't know what DoIT is, which most people don't, it's a MySQL and Postgres compliant database, except you work with it like it's Git. It's not performant, nor should it be. If you think about it, the engine isn't going to be performant because it's Git, but it works just like MySQL or Postgres. And they go through a lot of the things. All the details are here, but they also have some sample use cases over on their site, which I don't have pulled up here. But just trying to think of, sometimes you have to load data up and you want it to go at a certain point. The big thing that they called out, though, is being able to, quote unquote, roll back to a version of a database. So my use case here is testing. I could just have this big, ugly database with a bunch of branches, commits, whatever, that I can go back and just say, okay, load up this commit. Load up this branch. And that's my data set.
So that would be kind of replacement of restoring backup in a way.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
exactly. You're restoring a backup, but this really isn't restoring a backup. It's just going to a point in time, a point in a commit hash, if you will.
Yeah, but conceptually that's the same, right?
Yeah,
backup is a snapshot of at certain moment, right?
But this would be a lot easier versus having to do a restore.
Yeah, so it could be useful as maybe as not as a replacement of any database, but as
no.
mirroring a database into this, so that you can do some stuff like going back in time, what's or not.
Yep.
So as a mirror of a database, probably not being a production anything.
Nope.
Then yes, why not?
Yeah. Me and one guy in particular were going back and forth pretty deep, just trying to figure out, okay, how could we use this? What's the real use case? And we were talking about, they have a DoIT hub, which I'll open up in a new tab here. They don't have a lot of examples, but they've got like hospital price transparency. 1, 2, 3. U.S. President precinct results. Again, I haven't loaded these up to check them out, or something about the word I won't say on YouTube. IP to country, right? This is the one I was thinking about is, okay, that's slow changing, but it does change. And you like to be able to know at what point in time was it something else.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing here is you could do, I think there was a picture of it here. Where's the diff? There was a way to find diff. So you can diff a table. And this is branch A state populations, branch B state populations. And it would tell you which way the data is.
Yeah.
So I see real power in this for test cases versus doing mock data, personally. Even though this is mock data, it's, I don't know.
I guess the main question is really what is the algorithm it is using to store that data, because it cannot really store snapshots. That would break very, very quickly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious. And again, me and the other guy, we were just talking. We didn't actually try loading it up or testing anything out. So much like your to-do list, this is on my to-do list because data has always been a love for me. So
nice. It's also sometimes, sometimes we come with ideas that do not necessarily have immediately value and use cases, but you just feel that this might be good, right? And then I wouldn't be surprised if we figure out half a year later or a year later, hey, actually, there are all those use cases that would be a good fit.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. This one I added in due to your video about Kind. And
Okay.
Kind wasn't that big of a deal to you, except in the multi-cluster scenario,
Yes.
right? That's the real big thing for Kind, at least in your perspective.
And speed, if that matters.
And speed, yeah. But again, if you're trying to replicate a multi-cluster without going multi-cluster, like true real multi-cluster, Kind makes it cheap for you to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But
Yes.
then you still need to be able to do some sort of load balancer across your clusters. And that's what
Exactly.
this was about.
Not necessarily with Kind. Probably you wouldn't use Kind to go
Right.
this far. But yes, you do need load balancer across clusters. And it's a problem that I think that Kubernetes will need to solve sooner or later to be part of Kubernetes itself.
Yeah.
But until then, solutions like this are very, very welcome.
Yep. Again, I agree with you. I believe the community has to come up with a native solution because
Actually,
Go ahead.
community is working on that right now. It's just that there was initially it was all under the umbrella of Federation. I think that Federation is effectively dead now, and community is more or less starting over from scratch. So it will take a bit of time. But again, I like that they said, "Hey, Federation, it's a dead end."
Why did that happen? Why did they say Federation's a dead end?
I don't know the details, to be honest. In practical terms, I never got around using it heavily, in a real world situation because it just never really felt right. It never really worked well. Now I'm not sure why they're abandoning it, but it is effectively abandoned.
Okay. So if you wanted to try out this K8GB, there's a quick start here, and you can see one simple command. And it's going to deploy 2 local K3S clusters via K3D. It's going to expose core DNS and install K8GB. So if you want to go off and... Now, who watches the load balance, right? Who's watching the watchers? So what happens when your global load balancer fails?
That's why if you exclude on-prem, that's definitely something that needs to be in the hands of providers, right?
Yep.
Because then we enter into never-ending loop, from which you cannot go out. And if you're setting it yourself, then something needs to watch that, and then something needs to watch that, the thing that is watching that, and so on and so forth. It's just never-ending, right?
It is, and really, if you think about providers, the big 3, AWS, GCP, Azure, think about some of the people that actually just do networking, Cloudflare, Akamai, the other big players. That's who typically you want to have your load balancers with, because
Exactly.
even if you're self-hosting, whether that's actually on-premise or you're self-hosting within a cloud provider without using their service, you don't want to be doing the networking. If you feel like you need to be doing the networking, then you need to be building your own data centers and managing everything yourself, just like the big 3 and everybody else.
And there is no strong argument not to go with, let's say, provider cloud, even when you're on-prem, right? Because we're talking about external traffic. We are talking about something that goes from outside into your clusters.
Yep.
No matter what, right? Your users are outside. So, and I cannot imagine an argument that would say, no, this needs to be managed by us.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because, again, if it is that use case where you have consumers outside of your 4 walls coming to your applications inside your 4 walls, however you define the 4 walls, doesn't really matter. They're coming to you. Then you're not going to be laying dark fiber across the oceans. You're not going to be. It's just not going to happen. So we've gone way off in a different path, but that's at some point it just becomes ridiculous to think that you can do things yourself. So. Global load balancer.
It's not a small correction. It's not to think that you can do it yourself. First, I mean, that's true. Many people think that they can do it and they cannot. But even if you can do it yourself, the question is why you should do it yourself, not whether you can do it.
Right. Because the big 3 the big network providers, they do it, right? That is their business.
Exactly.
Is that your business? Probably not.
If it is, then you're a network provider. Then
Yeah.
you're a cloud provider.
Right. I saw this Kubestriker. I think of everything this week, this had the best logo. I think this was the best logo. A blazing fast security auditing tool for Kubernetes. So basically, it goes off and does the things. Unfortunately, you had to install pip to do it, but yeah.
Oh my! I missed that part.
Yeah, So I tried to sort of let that one ride, right? Because I get it, but you can
But
give it either.
it's okay because you don't need pip, right? You can run it as a container and forget about it.
Yes, that's correct. But you have to create a read-only user. You might have to do whatever unauthenticated scans, which is probably a pretty good idea to do anyway. You should.
Oh yeah.
Right. So to go off and do all these scans. This looks pretty interesting. I just like most everything else, I don't have time to try it out. It's funny though. Their licensing is open source and emailware.
What the heck is emailware?
Emailware is software whose users are encouraged to send the creator an email message in lieu of payment or registration.
Okay, I learned something today.
Good. I'm glad you did. It is licensed under, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Apache. Yeah, it's under Apache too. But they would just like to get an email. Well, that's nice. It's sort of like sending postcards. You know, your daughter probably does a postcard exchange, right? Companies that we've worked for would be like people go on to Slack or back in the day HipChat and say, hey, look, my daughter's classroom is doing a postcard thing. Can somebody send postcards from where you live? Right? And especially in the company that I still work for, that you used to work for, we would, people would just send postcards from all over the world. And that kid would be the coolest kid in class.
Yes. But that's an obstacle for some companies,
I know. That doesn't mean they're a high-performing company. Did I say that out loud?
True.
Wait. Okay. That reminds me, that's one thing I don't have here. I sent Victor over a link earlier today. Charity Majors released her slide deck on continuous integration, continuous delivery. Today, yesterday, somewhere in that ballpark. It's a great slide deck. I don't like slides. This was like reading a book. Not in a bad way reading a book. There was a lot of great content in that she boiled it down very well, much like she always does. So
exactly,
it's worth a read. I'll be sure to add that to the show notes today too. Okay, so Kubestriker. Hey, if you can have anything poking and prodding at your clusters, you should.
Yes.
If you feel like you should.
A message to people behind this project: please don't. I don't want to anymore use anything but self-executable binaries. Please don't force me to use Python or Node.js or whatever else to run CLIs. I don't want to do that.
So you're saying all people should either be writing in Go or C?
No. You can compile any language into self-executable.
Oh, so let me rephrase that. If you have a Docker image, you're okay.
If a Docker image is okay, but also, I haven't worked with Python for a long time, but I'm pretty sure that you can make an executable out of that. That I download the binary and run it without thinking whether I have Node.js or Python or whatever else might be required for me to run CLI. I don't want to run CLIs like that anymore.
And this project is a little bit old. Last commit was on January 14th of 2021. So again, would I bet my business on this? Probably not. Would I run this to test it out? Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay. Emailware can move there. Plumber. I was thinking about the episode that we did with Victor Gamoff from Confluent when I saw this. if you've never had to keep up with data going into some sort of streaming system, you've probably never worked for a large company, or you never worked in the part of the large company to where money was being made.
Exactly.
Because inspecting, like I did a lot of stuff with ActiveMQ back in the day. So, and just keeping track of the messages flowing, not going through, flowing through, was impossible. And this tool allows you to basically make it simple to see, you can drop things on, you can read things. This is good. I mean, this is phenomenal. And it supports, it was Kafka, Google PubSub, RabbitMQ. Here's many more here. Let's go there. Because I can't remember. Yeah, there's the full list of everything it supports.
It's almost everything that matters.
For 2021, this is pretty much everything that matters. So, and they even say, hey, look, if it's not supported, submit an issue. They'll try it out. Now, they also call this out. This was interesting. When running Plumber in relay mode in production, you want to have at least 2 instances. But then they go on and say 2+ instances. And then it's like, okay. For the authors of Plumber, I would probably try to rephrase this and give something a little more concrete. But I believe this is the general idea, and then each one of these are this is how the HA works. Or maybe not. It's hard to tell. But if you're working with any of these streaming systems, and I'm using streaming as a high-level phrase, messaging system, whatever, this is really good. I really like this. Again, this goes back to my love for data. Because usually data means money. Netmaker. Did you look at this one at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I did a few minutes ago before
Yeah.
we started, but not in detail.
So basically, this is creating encrypted tunnels using WireGuard under the hood between whatever point-to-point you want to do. So it's creating and managing a virtual network. Now, why would this matter? Well, they go through, here's some good use cases. So create a flat, secure network between multiple hybrid cloud environments. So I could have Netmaker running on one side, Netmaker running on the other side, and that's it. I don't have to go through and do the specific things inside of AWS and the specific things inside of GCP, for example. Here's the one that I like best. Secure a home or office network while providing remote connectivity. How many people like VPNs? Right? A VPN is a smell for a lot of use cases today. But if you needed think of this not so much from a home office perspective, but a remote site, a bank branch, a retail store going back to corporate. These kinds of things. This isn't solving a new problem. This is an old problem that's been solved how many different ways?
Many, and none of them successfully so far as I know.
But then, this was the one that jumped out at me. Encrypting inter-node communications.
But
you could do that.
Yeah, that's service mesh already, right?
It is.
I wouldn't go that far with using what is called Netmaker for that. Not that I have anything against Netmaker, but we reached the level that we more or less trust Istios and Linkerd. So I'm more interested into the part of, my laptop communicating with something else securely.
Yeah. Well, again, it's right here. It's like under the hood, Netmaker uses WireGuard to create encrypted tunnels between every node, creating a full mesh overlay. So it's what it is. If that's your jam, then take a look at Netmaker. And it's new, obviously. I mean, the oldest day is 8 days ago. So there's only been one release at 0.1. So Netmaker. TerraCognita. I figured this one you would like the best out of most everything today.
I like the best OM.
Okay, fair enough. But
Second
tooling wise, OM is just thoughts.
Yes, true.
This is a tool.
This is awesome. This is awesome for. I haven't went into details. I have only rudimentary knowledge, so it's still left for me to see how well it does what it's supposed to do. But if it does it well, then being able to import into Terraform to create Terraform definitions, essentially, of an existing infrastructure can speed up a lot of things, at least among companies that are behind.
Yeah. So if you haven't followed what this is about yet, is this reverse engineers actual infrastructure into Terraform, right?
Exactly.
That's what it says. So then the next question is, why doesn't Terraform provide a tool like that?
What is also, by default, I'm very defensive against those tools like that, because
Yeah.
whenever there was something like that generates code based on something that exists, that code tends to end up being unmaintainable.
Right.
And I'm not talking about TerraCognita because I haven't had opportunity to go into details yet. But the real challenge is not to import stuff. The real challenge is to make it in a form that actually I can continue using those Terraform files.
Right. Because hopefully you would run this once and then follow, then from that point forward, then never again to run it. Yeah.
Exactly.
At least that's what you hope.
Yes. And the major challenge, I think, is probably it needs to make sure that all the default values are not specified in that output. So,
Right.
if you create a, let's say, EKS cluster with all the resources, you have potentially hundreds or even thousands of arguments you can set in your Terraform files. But you're going to choose 10 that matter and leave 990 others intact. Now, if this gives me those 10, great. If it will give me 1,000 of, 50 times longer definition than what I would normally write, then I prefer to write it from scratch.
I'm coming back. There we go. This is a post from, I guess, last year. Cycloid is the company behind this. And let's see, I'm just scanning through it real quick. Yeah, right here. Terraform isn't hard to write, but if you have a lot of manually configured resources, it's time-consuming and error-prone. Isn't that true for all code?
Absolutely.
So if you can generate the Terraform files for you, so even if it's a quick one just to get you going, and then you go from that part and go on about the business.
Yeah. I just don't understand. If you scroll just a few sentences up, it says it's 50 to 70% quicker. Quicker than what?
I guess instead of writing it, I guess they mean it by this right here.
I mean, look, I expect it to be order of magnitude faster.
Yeah,
than
not
writing.
Just 50 or 70%.
If it's going to save me 50 to 70% from writing, then I'm not going to even try it, to be honest.
Yeah, that number seems off to me.
Very off.
Okay. Anyway, the item name is TerraCognita. Okay. I think it's the last tool. I just saw this right before we went on today. Vilicus. And again, a reasonably fresh tool under MIT license. What is it? And when I read it, I was like, what are they doing? An open source tool that orchestrates security scans of container images and centralizes all results into a database for further analysis and metrics. It can perform it with Anchor, Claire, and Trivy. Now, I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What? If I'm already using Anchor, if I'm already using Claire, why does this matter? And they address that
the results.
Exactly. That's right here. It's combining the results. It's sort of like if you're in the U.S. and you have credit reports with Equifax, whatever TransUnion, and whatever the third one is. It's like the credit reports aren't always exactly the same point for point. There's probably a lot of overlap, but there's probably also some outliers. So
you have tools that are doing different types of stuff. It's not only about overlapping, but hey, this is this type of scanning, this is that type of scanning. Having it all together is nice. But it's nice assuming that you don't want to go with things like SNCC, right? Because normally providers are giving you that single pane of glass for all security scanning right now. So it's really for enthusiasts who want to assemble it from pure open source. I mean, that even doesn't sound right because part of SNCC is open source as well. But yes, if you want to assemble it yourself, and then this gives you a pane of glass, right?
yeah, and the way this animated image is going, you can see here that clear goes back good and trivia goes back good, but anchor is bad, so therefore that fails that merge back up into, in this case, GitLab. So,
but one problem I have with that is that I believe that all those things, like including security scanning, but what I'm about to say equally applies to testing and many other things, is that the only way for those things to work is to make it binary. Hey, if any of those things fail, it needs to be fixed. If I start accumulating results, that means that I'm probably not willing to fix them, at least not anytime soon. And then what we should do is exclude. The things you don't care, exclude them. And things that you care, they need to fail your build. Right?
yeah.
It needs to be binary. You cannot pass if any of those things are failing.
Which is the way this picture shows. But people will argue that point with you. Because some people just want the data. Did it pass or fail? Okay, it failed. Think of a flaky test. Well, I still want it to go out even though my test failed. Okay, you have a bigger problem. I'm sorry. It just that's if
you can do with flaky tests is to remove flaky tests.
Yeah, until you can make it not flaky. Yeah.
Yes.
Or if you can't, and if you can't make a flaky test non-flaky, then the test is eliminated, and you come up with some other way to attack that problem.
And you can have different levels. You can say, hey, when I make a deployment to staging, then I do 57 things. And for going to production, I'm going to be more rigorous and I'm going to do 115 things, right? So you can have different levels.
Yeah.
But it must be pass or fail.
Yes.
I'm very religious about it. It needs to be like that.
Well, and that was one of the things, I don't know if you made it through Charity's deck or not, but that's one of the items that she called out, is there had to be no humans involved at the end. And the last mile,
Except to fix it.
Except to fix it. Right. There's no humans involved at all towards the end. And Charity, if you're watching this, forgive me for probably butchering what you said, but I believe that was the intent. Is there it should be once it goes on the train, if you will, using that metaphor, it's gone. Done.
Exactly. Otherwise, we have those silly meetings where we discuss, we have 1,575 security vulnerabilities, and that's such a waste of time to even discuss it.
Yeah, we have 1,575 vulnerabilities. By the way, what's everybody's vacation schedule?
But the worst thing with that is that if you don't lower the threshold and say, hey, this is what matters, without this we cannot pass, then if that threshold is much higher and you realistically cannot fix all those things, then you will most likely miss the things that matter. And that is the real problem. That's why it needs to be binary, because you need to be capable to say, this matters, and this is a nice thing to have. Right? Kind of, hey, putting comments above every function, you can say that's a nice thing to have. We don't fail builds for that. Excellent.
Right.
But then if you say that, then I don't have to write them. It's my personal choice, and there is no report that should be generated to tell me that I'm not doing something that I'm not supposed, that is not mandatory to do in the first place.
Yep. We'll loop back to that in a few moments in a different direction. And this was another thing that I saw right before we started today was AppScope, recently open sourced. I get what it's doing. It gives you the ability to scope any Linux command. Now, scope, in case you don't understand the word scope, in a medical term, that's when they either put a tube down your throat or a tube up the other end. That's scoping. So that's what this is. So if we can see this, it's probably really small. It's just saying scope bin echo true, and then it's just watching everything that's happening.
Okay.
So you don't have to set up a man in the middle. Like if you're trying to do, like the use case for this, or not use case, but a parallel to this would be Wireshark, where you're trying to just capture all the traffic. Well, this makes it simpler that I don't have to do a man in the middle. It's strace meets TCP dump, but a lot easier to use. So you can collect the data, you can observe the data, whatever that really means in their case, and again, simple. It's just a CLI, no new tools, just a CLI. It extends APM reach into every application. Let's go back to the picture at the top. And again, I haven't had time to play with this one at all. But they're showing all the different APM. I'm going to put Splunk in the APM category, at least for this use case. So New Relic, Datadog, Splunk. Well, now I'm able to shift left this information. And yeah, there's obviously a pay version of this too, but there is an open source. It is open source under Apache 2. So
you can, if I understood right, and correct me, Darren, basically you can see what's going on with any application theoretically, right?
yeah.
I see a huge business opportunity in this. If somebody can apply this to Zoom, Slack, and all other communication tools, so that your managers can know exactly what you're doing when you're working remote.
Well, okay, so sort of. So this is with any Linux command. Or
bugger.
Well, so the question is I don't know if it's going to watch for local, and I'll probably download the binary this afternoon because I've got an interesting thing I want to test for something I'm doing next week, and this is just a way to look at it for me. But this is if you're wanting to basically be nannyware, then this might be nannyware, if you will. But AppScope.
Nice.
So I like it. We'll check it out later. Let's get into the videos as we sort of start wrapping up here. We got 4 to go through here real quick. This was your combination of, or the comparison of EKS Fargate against Autopilot.
Yeah.
That's what it was, right? Autopilot still wins at this point, more or less, correct?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, they're very similar. The major downside I see is that Fargate profile is just silly to me. It makes no sense for me to create. I mean, if I'm using Fargate, it makes a lot of sense to create a profile. What I'm trying to say is that it didn't make sense that AWS is forcing us to use the profile. That they cannot just say, hey, I want this to be a Fargate cluster. And don't force me to tell you which namespaces now are Fargate and which are not.
Yeah.
But if we exclude the profile, they're very similar.
Yeah. Okay. That was last week again. Here was the multinode kind. So kind is kind.
Yes, kind is it's good. It's good. It's growing up on me, to be honest.
Now, you said in the, I don't remember where you said it now. Maybe it was in this video that you're going to start moving to kind instead of using Minikube.
Yes.
Have you rethought that position?
All the upcoming videos. I mean, I try to make all the videos that are related to Kubernetes agnostic. You can run stuff wherever, but gist with instructions from A to Z will be based on kind from now on.
Why did you make that decision? I know you talked a little bit about in the video, but why is that?
Mostly because of the because of the ability to actually define in a file what you really want. Now you can do it with Minikube as well, but Minikube, to me, that looked like some afterthought rather than anything else. So I like the idea that, hey, for every video there is a repository. Repository has kind YAML. You execute it, it will give you local cluster exactly as you need it for the exercises.
Which could
Now
not
I
be
will.
done, which couldn't be
Uh-huh.
done as easily with my Minikube.
It could be done, but it feels weird, their config file.
Right.
It never grew on me.
Okay.
Now, but there is a caveat. There is a tiny problem. I said that yes, all the videos will be with kind, and that's true. But 2 weeks from now, that will stop because of some other thing. But that's an upcoming video. I do not want to ruin the surprise.
Okay. Argo and Crossplane. I saw somebody comment on this in the Slack workspace that he was getting ready to do this, and this released right about the same time.
Yes, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome combination. There is Crossplane is. I also get a lot of hate messages. Crossplane is horrible. We should use Terraform, and I understand that, and I agree. Terraform is much more mature. Terraform has much bigger community. Terraform is bigger in every way imaginable. But if you ignore that, and if you ignore the fact that you need a Kubernetes cluster in the first place before you start managing your infrastructure, outside of those two potential issues, Crossplane is just amazing. It allows us to apply GitOps for real and manage everything with Argo CD or Flux, and just focus really on Git. Now you can focus on Git using, let's say, Terraform that triggers Jenkins builds or Codepress builds or GitHub actions or what's not, but it doesn't sync automatically. That's one of the big things for me. That I know that my infrastructure will always be as is defined, not only when webhook is triggered.
Right.
I don't know if Darren, if you were how much you were using it and when, if you remember, but basically, Puppet and Chef had that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had a server that sits somewhere that is monitoring some directory or repository or what's not, and
Yep.
it's continuously syncing, right?
Yep.
And this is something similar. We lost
Yeah.
that ability ever since.
Yeah, I think if Crossplane does what you need it to do, in other words, it has all of the, unlike Terraform, which again, Mitchell, if you're watching us, thank you for watching us. But if Terraform is the 800-pound gorilla, it does everything. But if all you need is this, and this is covered in Crossplane, then why not use Crossplane?
And Crossplane libraries, I'm assuming that the majority of people don't want to use tool to define their own API interpretations, what's not.
Yeah.
Crossplane libraries is about to grow drastically because all the major providers are working one way or another on providing Kubernetes definitions for their APIs.
Yep.
Like in AWS has, I think it's called ACK, right?
CDK.
Which is basically, yes, they're converting all their APIs into Kubernetes CRDs. And that means that you can basically, you have, through Crossplane and the ACK, you have access to absolutely everything that AWS offers. And potentially in the long run, if they make sure that they are automatically generating the CRDs based on their APIs, that can be coming to Crossplane theoretically faster than to other tools.
Right. Think of it as OpenAPI Swagger. If they're generating it in that direction,
Exactly.
it's almost a day one type or day zero type implementation.
Yeah, I see Crossplane being the next thing in infrastructure as code. Especially since recently I discovered that actually Kelsey Hightower is on a board of Crossplane, and that gives me additional level of confidence.
Kelsey. Okay, we made it almost 55 minutes without saying Kelsey's name. Okay. Okay. Last one. OPA. Are you down with OPA? No, that's another thing. OPA is Open Policy Agent.
Yes, basically, now my mind stopped. What did we say that is deprecated now in Kubernetes? The pod policy,
PS,
right?
yeah.
This is the thing basically.
Right.
This is what allows you to specify what can and cannot be done in a cluster, and I think it's crucial for bigger companies because there is always that struggle. Hey, I'm a sysadmin, and hey, I'm a developer. Sysadmin cannot let developers do whatever they want to do in the Kubernetes clusters because they're not knowledgeable enough or responsible enough to do the right thing. And if people use Gatekeeper and I'm seeing the comments right now, Kyverno, sorry, which is coming in one of the upcoming videos. I already started working on it. So David, I'm on it already. But if you use some of those tools, you can say, hey, you can do whatever you want. And if what you're about to do in my cluster is not what I want you to do, then it will not pass.
And guess what? That's okay.
And it was always silly to me to say, hey, you cannot create a stateful set, but you can create a deployment. To me, that's silly. Because that's almost like least resistance. Hey, that's easy for you who are the person in charge of deciding what I can do, can and cannot do. The real work is to say, hey, you cannot create more than 100 replicas because that's the real deal. That's an example of something that I shouldn't be able to do. Or, hey, you can create a service. I cannot deny you the right to create a service, but it cannot be a not port type of service because it exposes ports outside. So it requires more work, but results are what they should be.
Yep. And this coming week's episode of the podcast is going to be all about OPA. When I start editing it, that's what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
So that'll come out on Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern time. We are pretty much at time. It's now 8 o'clock where you are, right? And the sun is still out. That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, summer is coming, man.
Winter is left.
Months.
What?
2 more months.
2 more months. Man,
Midsummer, summer starts when I can go to the pool.
Okay,
and
right.
It will take 2 more months.
Wow. I know people are going to be in the pool here in probably about a month. So.
Yeah, but I like being comfortable in a pool. I'm not like Putin, right? Kind of. I go in minus 20 degrees Celsius because no.
Not your
thing. It needs to be. Okay. No.
All right. For everybody that's here with us live, thanks for hanging out. Have a great weekend. We will be back next Friday, and hopefully we'll have some more interesting information for you. And if this wasn't interesting, that's okay. If you haven't joined up in the Slack channel yet, I said it again. Dang it. The Slack Workspace, the link to join up in the Slack Workspace is down below, and all the other things. Buy the courses, buy the books, do all the things. Is that it? Oh, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe. And then the other videos that Victor was on, you can check those out. Those links are also down in the show notes. And you just crossed on your DevOps Toolkit Series channel, you just crossed 3,000 subscribers.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. I think you did.
That was the 250 subscribers ago.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Now it's 3.25. You're starting to ramp up now. That's all right.
Yeah, it takes time. I think that usually takes at least a year until it starts growing. But slowly.
And this channel for DevOps Paradox is almost at 500. So
nice.
It's okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you again next week.